everybody, we're at the Imp and the Ogre. My name's Paul.
This is Ryan.
And today we are tackling the Tower of the Stargazer.
Yes, this is, the third of our little triplet of Lamentations of a Flame Princess adventures that we've done here. Were listener requested, so this was originally published in 2010. It's for first level PCs, and it was written by James Edward Raggi IV. Available at Drive-Thru RPG, and I believe from the Lamentations of a Flame Princess website store as well.
Yeah, the thing I liked about this adventure is that it was written as an introductory adventure to the whole gaming system of Lamentations. And it was written based on 3 rules, which were be easy for our new players, be challenging for old players, and be an example for referees or dungeon masters on how to run/write an adventure, I guess.
For run the game. Setting.
Yeah, for the setting. And honestly, I think it ticked all those boxes reading through it. Probably one of my, I don't know, top 1 or 2 Lamentations of the ones we've done so far. Quite enjoyed it.
I think it might be my favorite one just because it's shorter than some of the other ones we've done, and it's more similar, I would say, to a standard D&D adventure. Mm-hmm. Right? There's the usual sort of like weirdness and like punishing aspects of the adventure, but not nearly in the same doses that you get with some of the other, like Deathfrost Doom or God That Crawls or something like that. So I did like it. Again, it's a nice location-based dungeon crawl. It's not too big. Like, you could easily run this in a single session, but it has a lot of avenues for further adventures, right? Like, it definitely can serve as a starting off point to more hijinks, which is always a plus for me when I'm reading any modules.
Yeah. So I guess overall impressions, I liked...
I guess we should say what it is. You find an old wizard's tower and you investigate it.
Yeah, you explore it. Yeah. That's about it, yeah.
That's the Cole's Notes version of the whole thing.
Overall impressions, I like the adventure. It's short, it's sweet, it gives you options to fail. Mm-hmm. I think that's one of the thing that adventures don't really do. There's an option to fail. Yeah. And that you can kind of do it if you're not being careful. And it's easy to succeed almost, it's not hard. Your failure is going to come from your own curiosity or being too nice, I guess, in the end.
It's designed to punish curiosity. And I would say that's one of the things I thought was maybe a little too harsh in this adventure, because the risk-reward aspect of it isn't really there, right? Like, there's some really dangerous things that could kill you and you might be able to overcome, but say you did succeed, the reward isn't really there for good reasons. Like, I don't think it's an intentional bait and switch, but I could see a player being like, oh, that's not great, especially considering like Joe and, Jamie died. And all we got was this T-shirt type of thing, Like there's a bit of that in it, just because like you do need to fiddle with things to get the rewards. But if you fiddle with things, you die sometimes. Yeah. So it's a tough balance. Like, I really like the sort of design aesthetic of Lamentation modules, that dungeons are dangerous. This is not a place where rational, normal people go, because bad things happen to people, and sometimes you die, right? But if you wanted safe, you would be a farmer. If you want to get rich, you become an adventurer. Yeah. But the attrition rate of adventurers is a lot higher than farmers.
Yeah. And part of the thing that I liked about this adventure, and although it's not a dungeon, it's a wizard's tower, and the environmental effects are that which would be in a wizard's tower, and rightfully so, it is just as dangerous as a dungeon would be, right? Yeah. It's, defended as a wizard would probably defend his place, and there's wizardly things in the wizard tower that makes you think like, oh yeah, we're in a wizard's tower, which I really liked.
Oh, the aesthetics of it are nice. It's different from a lot of what we've done so far because it is so thematically cohesive, I guess. Like, it's an observatory / sort of research laboratory / living area, I guess. So it's well designed. Now, that being said, I will say from a straight livability standpoint, there's lots of weird aspects to the design of the Wizard's Tower that, like, it's interesting from a let's explore a dungeon standpoint, but from a I live here every day and have to deal with this obnoxiousness standpoint isn't super great.
Right.
I've been thinking about like how you get into the basement in particular, and I get the idea is maybe wizards are supposed to be paranoid about protecting their secrets, but like to get into your root cellar, like I shouldn't have to slide a statue out of the way and a bunch of other.
But like Legend of Zelda, that's how you get into the basement.
That's exactly where you find the stairwell. Yeah. So some of that was a bit odd, I thought. I guess the point I wanted to make regarding like the dangerousness of fiddling with things. I don't like it when it's too harsh, mostly because you don't want to be de-incentivizing your players from fiddling with things. Like, I mean, I personally don't think that's what you want to be doing, right? Like some people might want that to be the case. So I like the idea of sometimes bad things happen, but I don't like the idea so much bad things happen because you push that button and now you're dead. Yeah. Right? So there's that kind of fine balance between you touched it, you lost a finger, versus you touched it and now you're dead. Yeah. Right? Like there's a sliding scale of punishment.
I guess we could jump into that punishment, but let's talk about the hooks briefly before we get there. So effectively, put a tower in a place, put lightning near the place, the rumor of a wizard, that's your general hook. They provided 3 for this adventure because I think it is an introductory. So one was, you can hear an old man rambling about the rumors of the tower. Over here, the second one I liked, you can overhear a rival adventuring group talking about planning their trip to go see this tower, loot it, whatever. Or you could just notice that there's like, whoa, odd, there's lightning in this place that there shouldn't be lightning, and go explore on your own. And then you just assume that you're going to travel there. So,
yeah, I think I'd probably go a little bit further if I was running this, in that I think this supposes that your players are going to be more proactive than some players I've had with in the past. Yeah. I think I would be more direct. I would put something that the players need to recover in the tower, or even something as simple as like a former colleague of the wizard wants to know what happened to, Jane, or whatever, right? So you give them a goal and a reward.
I think it would be, now that you're saying this, like it would be neat if the apprentice sent them there to recover something of his because he was afraid to go back to the wizard tower. Because
the apprentice would probably be dead. I guess part of the issue with this is like, I think it was supposed to be like 60 years have passed or something. Yeah. So you might have to fiddle with it a little bit. But if you make it an elf, or if there's elves, or actually, that would be even better if it was like an elf colleague that lent this wizard a book and hasn't gotten it back yet. So he's sending you as a book retrieval. Like you're just a librarian to return, the book detective. Books. Yeah. I think something like that, a little bit more directed. I find that at least with a lot of people I play with, they need a goal. Yeah. Right. Murder hoboing is a lot less common in my tables, I guess. So like more than just like there might be adventure over there versus like, hey, there's definitely something you need to get from over there.
I think that's a good point for like groups though, because it's easier to get a group of people to do something if there's a common goal. Like if one person's like, let's go explore the lightning, and other people are like, no, why would we do, there might be nothing over there. Then you end up this huge conversation at the table, whether or not just knowing there's a sort of magic awesome over there, let's all go and get it. Probably good to have motivation.
Well, I think people tend to be goal-oriented versus, like, as part of this is just sort of the design decisions of the game, right? I guess the whole aesthetic of Lamentations is, like, you are a bunch of murder hobos, and you're just trying to make a buck. Yeah. So the idea that if there might be loot to loot, we should go check out where there might be loot. So it's not the style of games I normally run, so that's why I would make the adjustment.
Yeah. So now rewinding to the point where things you touch and die. If you show up to the wizard tower and decide to try the handle of the door, it turns into a snake and bites you, and it's a save or die.
Didn't care for that.
So, welcome to the adventure. Now you're
dead.
Although, I did enjoy the rationale for why they put this there. And they're like, well, if you were a friend of the wizard, you'd know to knock anyway. Or if you were like, who tries to open the door when they're visiting somewhere? They're like, knock first.
Yeah.
So, you know, this is sort of like along the theme of Lamentations, where it's like, if you do things that you would normally do in real life, like not drinking the water in the dangerous evil temple, or just trying to enter a wizard's tower without being invited in, bad things will happen.
Yeah. Again, it falls in the maybe a little too harsh.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you think that people wouldn't be okay with the delivery guy constantly dying.
Yeah.
You know? Granted, the delivery guy should be using the knocker, but...
Yeah. I mean, at level 1, the handle turning into a snake and biting you and taking a d4 damage or whatever it is probably enough.
Oh. But, yeah, save or die seems a little harsh. Also, there's a corpse right at the entrance. I don't know if you made note of that. The person with the climbing gear that was sprawled out dead. And there's the blurb there with like, characters who are knowledgeable about underworld figures will recognize the body as being that of famous thief Del Lorenzo. And I read that, I'm like, what? And then there's the justification sidebar. And again, I read that, I'm like, really? And the whole point of this bit of information is to reward players that might have made a background that has to do with
the underworld
figures. And I kind of appreciate the idea of this as a world building sort of exercise. Like, oh yeah, there's all of this stuff outside of us.
Yeah.
But like, unless you're going to use it for something, I don't see the point. Also, I thought it a bit weird that like there's no distinctive features that are readily visible on the basically skeletal corpse. Right? It's not like they have 2 gold teeth or like an eye patch and a jaunty hat. You know, like there's nothing about the description that would be something that would pop out in your memory about, oh, this is the famous thief. You know, he's only got 9 fingers and a gem for an eye. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I thought that was,
You know it's him by the way that it is.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very much it. And I don't know. I just thought it was super random.
Yeah.
And that's, I don't know. It's random even for a Lamentations adventure, which means it's super random. Now, that being said, if you could use it as a hook for something else, right? Like maybe there's a
signet ring.
Parchment document pouch that there's some information in it, or like even if there was information on the corpse about the location, because the idea is this thief was going to be trying to rob the thing. So like you could easily have a pouch with some notes about it, you know, day 1 note, don't use the door handle. You know, like right, like you could put stuff like that in there, which would make it a little fairer. Which and
kind of humorous at the same time.
Exactly.
If you did the door before the pouch, then you'd be like, You
know, day 1, we lost Joseph. He tried the door handle. Like, you know, like you could expand on it a little bit more, and I kind of would do that if I did it.
Yeah, that'd be fun. You enter the place eventually through some means. The front door. Yeah,
I kind of just sort of I went sort of the flying survey aspect.
Of it, the foyer I liked because, well, it cleans itself when no one's in there, and I thought it was cool to have wizardly aspects of the wizard tower. And I'm always a fan of environmental things that make you feel like you're in the place that you're supposed to be in.
Sure.
Go ahead.
In the sitting room, there's the wine bottles. I made note of that. I don't know if you did as well, but there's a bunch of them. 3 of them are worth a ton of cash intentionally. Like, this might be the only money you collect in here, so collect it. Okay? And then one of them has spoiled, and if you drink it, it will kill you 12 hours later.
Yeah. Well,
I believe I wrote dumb and unrealistic. So, bad wine. Why would you drink it if it tastes terrible? And it shouldn't kill you after an arbitrary period of time. Just, it shouldn't. Like, I'm just going to say no. Also, I remember reading this. There was a little blurb about, it's worth this much money, but a true wine connoisseur would never do anything so gauche as sell it. They'd enjoy it. And I'm like, what? Who are you? Who are your adventurers? Like,
I don't know.
People that enjoy a aged bottle of Merlot in the evening? I mean, I guess so. Entirely possible. I don't want to judge your PC. So I thought that was just, I don't know, odd.
I like the door to the wizard quarters that has a small trickle of blood coming out of the keyhole.
I did not like it. Tell me why you liked it.
I don't know. I thought it was just like neat. You know, if you bash it down, blood flows out, savors paralysis. Yeah.
See, this is what ties into like, how is that particularly nice from a livability standpoint?
Yeah.
Like, why is it leaking blood? Where's it leaking blood from? You got a trickle of blood running down the stairs.
Right.
All the time.
Yeah.
Like, forever. And, is it to, like, make people think that there's a room full of blood on the other door? Like, this was one of the weirdest things in here that makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't get it. Because I guess what the trick of the door is that the key is in the other side. Mm-hmm. Right? The door is locked, but the key is in the opposite side of the door.
Yeah.
So there's this whole blurb about like, how can get it out? And he's like, oh, well, the traditional way is you put a piece of paper under the door, and then you push out the key so it falls on the paper, and then you pull it under the door. Huzzah. And I'm like, okay, cool. Just roll an open, disable this device roll for my rogue, but whatever. But I think the idea is to make it seem like if you can't figure out the puzzle to get the key, well, the next step would be to chop down the door, and if you chop down the door, you get the blood waterfall. Mm-hmm. Which, fine.
Yeah.
But it just seems out of place.
Sure.
Trap your door, so if someone tries to knock it down, things happen. Sure. Exploding blood waterfall that causes your door to weep blood all the time.
He went mad. We don't know what he's all about.
He's not mad. He's just mean.
Yeah.
Mad's a relative term. Like, let's not judge. So I didn't really like it.
Levitation shaft was cool. It's like a wizardly elevator. Thought that was neat. Good way to get around.
Sure.
The frozen storage room that had vials of blood in it. If you tampered or broke the vials, they turn into little bloods that would attack you.
I thought the animated blood was pretty cool. So, and when I read that, I'm like, man, that is like an awesome like bomb weapon.
Yeah.
But like once you figure it out, just throw it at your enemy's feet, smash it, and suddenly there's like a little amoebas attacking them. I like that as a design kind of decision.
One of the things I like, one of the environmental conditions that I liked is in the description of the library, and that these books are so old and ancient that, some of them, if they see light, the ink will fade and the pages will crumble, and I think a lot of people when they're running games are thinking about these ancient libraries are like, yeah, that makes sense. Like they're protected from light, but they're in these places with torches and reading all this stuff. And there's a reminder in this adventure that, these are light sensitive things, and like, how are your players reading them if they're in this room, and they could be destroying everything even without inadvertently destroying them without thinking about it.
Yeah.
Where I think that's like a detail that gets looked over sometimes in games, the small stuff, well, light sources in general. Right. Yeah. But, I like that.
I agree. Should we talk about the wizard study and the wizard?
Yep.
So the twist of this whole thing is that the wizard has been missing, presumed dead, for decades, and it turns out that he's not. Basically, in his obsession to study the stars, he became evil-ish, we'll say. I don't know if it really states like
cruel,
vindictive,
murderous.
Yeah. Power hungry, and his apprentice / I don't know, valet eventually got fed up with him and sabotaged one of the wizard's rituals, and as a consequence of that, the wizard has been trapped in a protective circle for the last 60 years. Mm. So when the players get into the study, they find a wizard in the stereotypical wizard garb. He's got the pointy hat and the robes and all the long beard, and he just is a nice wizardy guy.
Yeah,
that just asks for a little bit of help.
Yeah, very nice guy. Until haggled with. So he'll offer a reward. I think 100 whatever gold or silver or whatever they use in this.
Yeah.
And this is what I really liked about this adventure and how they played him, right? Mm-hmm. You know, because you can find his the journal of the servant before this, and you can read his notes on how he's been acting, and then you meet him, and he's a nice guy, right? And he says, "Let me out, you know, I'll give you 100, whatever.
Yeah,
all you got to do is brush this salt away or whatever it is. If you choose to haggle, then he turns immediately into very cruel and murderous and starts banging up against the barrier.
He gets angry and demanding and threatening, and then just like goes from there.
Yeah, he kind of just like goes off. So I mean, I like the flip of the switch kind of on him that explains why he's maybe in there, and then kind of goes on to say, well, if you let him out, you let him out. That's on you, right? And
well, the thing is though, like you can let him out, and he's like, "Thank you,"
and he'll give you the reward.
He'll give you the reward, and then he kicks you out of his house, which is totally reasonable.
Yeah,
right. Like it totally makes sense to me that that's what would happen. One thing I really did enjoy about this encounter is the designer sidebar on it, where the author explains that this isn't really an encounter; it's a trap.
Yeah. And
I liked that little insight into the logic behind it, is that, you know, it's really the PCs are being tempted to interact with this person who's trapped, and there's no consequences to not, right? Like he's going to get angry and yell at you lots and threaten to murder you. But as long as the circle isn't disrupted, he can't get out.
Yeah.
So it's really at the PC's sort of discretion what they want to do here. Again, this is one of those situations where the adventure could be over in a heartbeat. Like you got into the thing, you poked around a little bit, you knocked down a door, you freed the wizard, you got to leave.
Yeah.
Okay. High fives.
Yeah.
Like, we made some money.
Yeah.
Good day, everybody. So I thought that was kind of cool to a certain extent, but what I was thinking is it really should be expanded a little bit in that he's evil, but he's only kind of like evil-ish. And if we're dealing with, you know, murder hobo-y players, what's to stop them from like working with the wizard?
Yeah.
So like that's the first thing that popped into my head. I'm like, well, what if they freed him and as part of the reward, he hired them, right? This is a guy that's been, you know, stuck in his tower for 60 years. He needs some people with some connections out there in the world. His last servants, you know, screwed him over. So wouldn't it be an interesting way to do a little sort of mini campaign where your PCs are actually working for the wizard who seems super nice, and then they slowly realize that maybe he's not so nice.
Yeah.
You know, you go on some missions for him and acquire some things for him, and then you sort of realize what he's doing is bad. Maybe he's trying to open a portal to another planet or something crazy that ultimately, you know, culminates in the PCs having to stop the wizard.
Yeah.
You know, like prevent the evil that they've unleashed. And that's my kind of narrative arc that I kind of like. So reading that, I'm like, that's cool. On the other hand, I also thought that like maybe the PCs just embrace this guy's kind of crazy, and that it's not quite an evil campaign, but it's like evil adjacent campaign where they're like, yeah,
that sounds kind of neat.
That's super cool. Let's get on board with that, right? And lean into it. So I thought that would be kind of fun as an alternative, especially if, you know, they just let him out.
You know, I think they would let him out. Like, it's so easy to do. Just removes like curiosity, right? That's the point of the game, sort of. So unless he was like really awful for some reason, I mean, yeah, he's like a crazy old guy wizard, but I could see myself releasing him as a player.
Yeah, well, there's not enough in-game information about him that would suggest that he shouldn't be let go.
Yeah.
Right? Like, the local rumors and whatnot aren't about this wizard tyrant. It's like, no, it's just like this wizard guy who used to
And,
live out
he
there.
can't be that evil if he was sealed up and then nobody came to deal with him at some point. And he can't be that well known that nobody came to check in on him at some point, right?
Yeah.
So you got to he's like a hermit wizard just doing the stargazing. So something to be had, I think.
Yeah, no, I could see it going more likely in that direction than the other way around.
It would just be the problem would be in negotiating your terms afterwards because he just wants to get rid of you once he's out, right?
Well, I mean, that's as written. What I'm just saying is, if I was doing this, I'd maybe make him a little bit more willing to talk about it. Be less about let's just kick you out, more like, oh, well, thank you very much. You've done me a favor. Maybe I could do you one as well. Blah, blah, blah. And then it sort of spins off from there instead of it just ending the adventure. Because as written, it's a trap. You've let him out and you've ended the adventure.
Right.
And it's less satisfying to me than you let him out and now it's a call to a new adventure. The adventure is now changed and we're going to do something else. And I like that as an idea.
Yeah. Good. Good point.
What else do you want to mention? I got a couple other things.
The dumbest part of the adventure, and for some reason the game likes to do this, the ghost game for your soul.
I don't know if I wrote it as the dumbest part in there, but I have comments.
I mean, so the idea is that you, it's basically the lock to a door, and you sit down in a chair, and it's at a game table, and when you sit down, a ghost appears on the other side of the table. And you're meant to play a game against this ghost. And if you win, it opens the door. And if you lose, you become the next ghost to sit at the table and wait to be beaten or won or whatever it is.
You die.
Right. So the dumb portion of this, and I think they wrote it in the adventure, is that he pulled out a chessboard effectively and played a game of chess with his players, which I think a player or two maybe were interested in the actual game. And the other players had a nap while it happened.
Yeah.
And, this game likes to do things outside of the realm of inside the game. So it's in fitting with Lamentations, but that's just resolve it in a way in game. I think that would be quicker, right? No one wants to sit down and watch people play chess. It takes a while. But
it's non-interactive for everybody that's not involved.
Yeah.
Which means it's boring for everyone else involved.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. I think it's a cute idea. And, these modules tend to be full of cute ideas sometimes, but I don't like it. I don't like it as a design decision at all. So losing is super bad, right?
Yeah.
You lose, your player dies. But this is one of those situations where the risk reward really isn't worth it. Because if you win, all you win is access to the wizard's sort of secured library.
Yeah.
Right? So in there is a bunch of knowledge about stuff that the players don't care about.
Yeah.
And a spell book, which they may find. It's hidden.
You could find a nice spell book in there and some varying scrolls. But the risk reward, a life for maybe you're not even a wizard, who knows, or don't even find it, right?
So though, if, say, your PCs are on a book retrieval mission, well, they need to get in there. Then suddenly there's more of an incentive to get through there. Also, this is another one of those situations that from a day-to-day use standpoint, every time the wizard wants to get into this part of his library, he has to play a game for his soul. What if he has an off day? Maybe I get that he's, egotistical, but maybe you just have an off day at chess and suddenly you die because you don't want someone to look at your books that nobody else cares about.
True. Maybe he has a different way to get in.
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. Seems a bit ridiculous.
It seems a bit ridiculous. Now, on the other hand, sort of in defense of the lock on the room, it's important to the wizard. And just because something is secure doesn't mean it has to be valuable to murder hobos.
That's true, yeah.
which is one thing I did like about it. Like, it totally makes sense for this area. Like, it's expensive books and important information and knowledge for the wizard. So yeah, I'm going to protect this from casual perusal. But it has no value to the average person and no value to the PC. So like that aspect of it, I did like. That just because it's locked in a vault doesn't mean it's money.
Right.
Sometimes things get locked up for other reasons. And that I kind of did like. I don't know if you wrote anything or made any mention about the observatory, the telescope part, because it's neat.
Yeah.
Kind of pointless, but interesting, and it sort of ties the whole thing together.
Yeah, so there's little clues throughout, like in his in the main room where the wizard is, there's a big crystal, which is a star crystal, they call it, and you can find other books of his notes on like interdimensional travel and communicating with beings from another planet and stuff like that, which is, if you spend time reading through it, it's just kind of all theory and nothingness, basically. And then you come across his observatory, which is this massive telescope, effectively, and you can work it if you figure out how to work it, or die trying to work it if you do it in the wrong sequence. And if you do manage to put it all together, you can operate the telescope and look through it, and you can see another planet. If this star crystal is not in its proper place, right? So
and once again, would all be by trial and error, and it's highly unlikely that you pull the right knobs. And
so you can, if you put it all together, you can look through and you can see another planet.
One thing I will interject here, I did like the fact that, again, because the players don't know what they're doing, if they pull the wrong lever, they lift the telescope before opening the shutters on the observatory. So pressing the wrong lever can just destroy everything.
Yep.
And then, everything else is kind of moot.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you can kill yourself doing that too. Like if you extend the lens before the gate is open, it actually collapses on top of you, I think, maybe. But yeah.
There's all types of weird stuff in there.
So it's, like a series of stuff and levers, and maybe you're probably not going to figure it out because there's not an operation manual. So you can see this other planet, and you see the surface of, I don't know, some jungle zone or whatever. And then if you place the star crystal in the reservoir that you're supposed to be in, the person observing, looking through the telescope, is teleported onto the planet and turned into goo, which the inhabitants of the planet, it's a sacred offering, and they come and like gobble it up or whatever it is.
So yeah, the remaining PCs can look through the telescope and watch the pulped remains of their colleague getting eaten by foreign alien fauna.
Yeah, I'm okay with it, kind of.
Ish.
I don't like the death aspect to it. I think it's neat that there's there's another planet out there.
I again, looking at the designer sidebar on this, right, the points made is like, it's highly unlikely this is ever going to happen.
Yeah.
But the justification for it is totally about DM pleasure, or game master pleasure at seeing the response that your player has when you tell them that their character just got basically disintegrated and eaten by aliens. So I don't know if I'd want to go so far for my own personal amusement. Like, it's one of those things that get close to, like, it's funny to the DM, but maybe not funny for the player.
Yeah.
And it seems a bit harsh when really you just sort of want to teach them not to meddle with the affairs of wizards. Because really, that's kind of the idea, is like, this is super technical stuff that you don't understand. You shouldn't be playing with it.
Yeah.
Which, again, is an important rule to teach your players. And I guess if one of them dies, the rest will learn from that.
Yeah. And, I think having read a bunch of these now, things that I don't like might be the reason why this was written. A game for people that do like that kind of stuff, right? And, liked D&D but wanted to be involved a little bit more. We're okay with this weird, funny, gruesome endings, right?
Yeah.
And, I guess the writers of this were probably playing with a pretty small group when they started, right? And this might have been entertaining to them. But if you pulled this out and you're playing with your regular D&D night crew, and all of a sudden they're teleported into goo, I don't think that's going to go over so well.
It might not. I mean, again, this is such an unlikely outcome due to the number of things that need to be done.
Yeah.
That I'm sort of on the fence as to like what is the point of it being in here. Like the likelihood of it occurring is slim to none. You know, sometimes I find in these adventures that things seem like they were written just because the author is like, oh man, imagine if they did this and then this happened. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
So let's put that in there, even though it's highly unlikely that would ever occur. So
yeah,
it's not necessarily useful information to me just because it probably is not going to get used.
Yeah.
In the adventure. Also, I feel like there should be more information in the adventure about like what can you learn from the wizard, right? Like it basically says, oh, he gets really angry and yells at you if you don't let him out right away, but then you muck about his house for what if you move into his house, right? Just leave him there and you move in. Like there's going to be more interactions with this person. So
yeah. It was like I kind of just took it at face value that he was there, and his reaction to you bartering would, you'd think he would just lie, right?
Yeah.
Oh, what do you want then? Right? You're his only opportunity to get out.
Yeah.
He's I don't know if it says what level of, wizard he is in this, but
high.
Right, and interested in and he's been trapped there for 60 years. Like he's going to say whatever he can to get out, right? Yeah. And like,
that's the approach I would take.
Yeah. It wouldn't be anger. Right? Because that's kind of a foolish response to wanting to get out of something. He should be offering them everything he has, and
yeah.
I'll let you into my vaults, and you haven't seen the secret things, and all this sort of stuff. So
yeah,
yeah, I guess
I think there's just different ways you can go about it. I think for the fact that it's a really interesting setup, right? A trapped wizard whose tower you're in. I feel like more could have been done with that. Like I think that's the most interesting part of the whole adventure is the fact that the owner is there and trapped and can be interacted with, and the discovery that the players are the ones that have the power in the situation, and like that type of negotiation of what would it take to let him out.
And you could have him like, you've got all this neat stuff in there. Like the telescope's cool.
Yep.
If you can use it, you have him tell the truth, but bend it, right? Oh, I trapped myself in here trying to devise a spell that would allow me to safely teleport to the planet. You don't believe me? Here's how you operate my telescope.
Yeah.
Go do it. You can see the planet, and then there's truth behind what he's saying. It might convince PCs to let him out. If you put this in there, you'll turn to goo. If you don't believe me, go try it, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And then there's all these reasons, and he can be manipulative, right?
Well, I mean, I think it'd be funny that like he can pass on that information to them and be like, well, with the star crystal, it'll let you do this, but I'm not sure if it's safe, which was why I was working on this. So like what you do is you tell the PCs what it could do.
Yeah.
But you also have the warning in there.
Yeah.
That like I don't think it's safe to use, which is why I was devising this. So that you could have PCs just think he's lying.
Yeah.
And try to use it. And then it's more their comeuppance.
Yeah.
Like you got what you deserved because you were warned and you didn't listen.
Exactly.
Like in a situation like that, I'm much more in favor of like, no, you were told that if you touch that, bad things are going to happen.
Yeah.
And then you touched it.
Yeah.
So don't cry to me that you're now a pile of goo being eaten by aliens.
Yeah. And like, having like an exploratory type dungeon or place to be, like using the telescope, I think maybe would be fun, right? Like, it's a big part of this guy's sanctum, I guess, right? And, probably pretty valuable to people.
Yeah.
How many telescopes are there in this world, I guess, right? So.
I think I think using that interaction as the focus of the adventure is a better way to go about it. That you really build everything around your interactions with the wizard. And I think depending on how the players are with the wizard, that can determine the outcomes if they actually release him. Right? Like if the more dismissive or what's a good word, rude they are to the wizard, the more likely he is to turn against them or set them up to do dangerous things or consider them expendable, whereas, you know, maybe the nicer and you know, smarter they appear, like if there's a wizard in your group and they are able to like figure out some of the things and seem clever, then maybe this guy would be likely to take him on as like an apprentice. Like you could definitely turn this away from just being, oh, there's a wizard trapped, it's a trap, to this potentially could be a patron, you know, of the party. And this whole thing could just be the focus of going forward. So, which I think would be more fun for the style of games I like to run.
Yeah.
And spinning things off of this, because it seems like a fun way to meet a patron by like rescuing them, even if the patron ends up being like
bad,
evil, you know, like your patron's neutral evil, but you may not know that from the get-go. It seems like a fun way to gain one is by rescuing them.
There's a couple other things I liked. For some reason, you know, there's a storeroom that he has that's full of like random stuff. And there's like a random crate table that they've got in the adventure where there's 4 different lists, and you can, what is the thigh bone of a merchant who lied about butterflies.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
the
like
reagent room.
So it's just like all this stuff that you can like roll on this table for and just have a bunch of random things. And I thought that was like kind of a cool idea, right? Like,
this is one of the rooms in the basement, right?
Yeah.
Where you had to like move the fake boxes to find the trap door to get
I thought it kind of gross but fun was the workshop of cadavers that he's been, I don't know, experimenting on or whatever, but one of them's sewn up with golden thread. If you undo the thread, then you're assaulted by the innards of this thing. They animate. Oh yeah,
the animated organs. Once again, like fun things that aren't really an issue unless you meddle with the affairs.
Yeah, and I mean, it's golden thread, so that could be worth something, right? Yeah. And then the last thing that I have written down, which were like awesomely powerful, was the series of mirrors that were in there, which I have all of them down on here. But they've got like one of them, the mirrors, you see a picture of your idealized self. Your character's ability score is determined randomly or increased. If you fail, then the opposite happens. You become old and withered. You know, they're like very punishing, but have these like amazing benefits to them.
Yeah.
Which are like these crazy powerful items just sitting in this place, right? So, anything else you want to add?
Oh, no. I mean, there's these types of modules are loaded with weird and random. And I don't like when we get too listy, right? So it's more fun to talk about broader strokes than the minutia. So I avoided that this time.
Yeah.
In general, I mean, unless you have something else to add, I liked the structure. I liked the location. The Wizard Tower in general is a fun setup. I think it's reasonably well designed. Some things that just didn't make sense to me, but whatever. I'm not a wizard. And I really liked the fact that the wizard's still alive. I thought there were so many options that you could take that idea with that really got my creative processes going, which I'm, you know, I could definitely see myself using this adventure and going with those ideas, right? Not just having the wizard being a trap, but having him being the focus of ongoing stuff, even just a mini campaign or, you know, beyond.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah, I thought it was cool. I think the ideas we talked about the wizard and maybe not being evil or angry, right?
Yeah.
And like more convincing and manipulative would be a good approach to take it. I like the theme of a wizard tower. I like themed things. So that kind of sat well with me. And yeah, I'd run it, I think, or at least use a lot of it as
I mean, I think with any of these Lamentation adventures, they're a little too punishing and a little arbitrarily mean in places for my personal taste. So I'd probably tone that down a little bit. But other than that, I think they're a lot of fun.
Yeah, as always, guys, thanks for listening. What are we talking next week?
Next week we are covering the Mad God's Key.
Right, Mad God's Key. You can email us at theimpandogre@gmail.com or on Twitter at theimpandogre. Give us some adventure ideas or give us some feedback, and we'll get back to you in time. Thanks for listening.
Yeah. Bye.